Welcome. It's a regular Tuesday night meeting of Golden Speakers Toastmasters. It is Tuesday, September 24th. We meet every Tuesday in Fairfield Business Park's second floor conference room at 7:45. We enjoy having guests come, and we have a guest tonight. Lacey, would you stand and just tell us in a few seconds why you decided to come?
Okay. My name is Lacey Teal. I was at the Fairfield First Friday Art Walk, and I do believe Veda and Carmen had spoken with me about memberships, and I thought I would give it a try. I thought, well, public speaking, I'd like to get better at that. Sure, I'd like to develop some new skills. So here I am.
Very good.
Yes, so thank you for having me.
Before I forget, I'm going to pull out this device and suggest that everybody else put theirs on silent for the evening. Then I'm going to read the mission of the Toastmasters Club before I introduce tonight's Toastmaster. The mission of a Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop leadership skills and oral communication, which in turn fosters self-confidence and personal growth. That's our mission. We're going to move right along and get started with our meeting. I'm going to turn things over to Aaron Russell, who is tonight's Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, our meeting theme for tonight is your personal success. And we have a quote here that says, people who succeed have momentum. The more they succeed, the more they want to succeed, and the more they find a way to succeed. Similarly, when someone is failing, the tendency is to get on a downward spiral that can even become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then we also have a second quote. If you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. Great quotes. I think we can all better understand and grow by. I'd like to get started with our role players for tonight. First is our timer, who is Miss Jean Symington Craig tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Tonight, my role as the timer is to keep track of certain pieces of the meeting, because it's not just what we do, but do we do it within the time that we've been allotted. I will be starting with prepared speeches. We have two speeches tonight. Our first speaker, Carmen, is going to have a 5 to 7 minute speech. The green light will go on at 5, the yellow at 6, and the red will go on at 7, and then she has 30 additional seconds to wrap it up. We'll also have a second speaker, Adi Hazim, who will be giving us his icebreaker. The green light will go on at 4 minutes, the yellow at 5, and the red at 6. We'll be having several different evaluators this evening. The evaluations are 2 to 3 minute speeches. Green light will go on at 2, yellow at 2.5, red at 3. And again, you have 30 seconds to wrap up. Table topics. We have our table topics master, Dan Craig. Table topics are impromptu speeches. Guests are welcome to participate. The green light will go on at 1 minute, the yellow light at 1.5, and the red at 2 minutes. And then again, you have 30 seconds to finish. And I'll be giving a report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Jean. Next we have our grammarian, who's Janet Evertson.
Thank you. We have a word of the day. It's pronounced outre, which means passing the bounds of what is usual. It could be the bizarre or just off the beaten path. An example in a sentence. Her costume of fringed buckskin was wild and outre, even for a frontier king.
Sounds French.
Sounds French. Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. It says something.
And so, what are we doing with this work?
What are we doing? Using it as much as possible throughout the meeting. And I'll be writing it down. Outre. The outre, like Jean had. Speaking of the devil.
Outre. Fashionably outre, yes.
All right, thank you, Janet. Next, we have our ah counter, who's Art Atkinson.
My role as counter is to listen for filler words that speakers might unfortunately use, and to tabulate who uses what kind of filler word, and to give a brief report at the end of the meeting. Examples are like, you know, so, but, and used incorrectly to string sentences together, and some mouth noises like tongue clicks, false starts, and repeated starts. I'll give a brief report at the end of the meeting.
Our general evaluator for tonight is also Jean Symington Craig, and our greeter slash joke master is Adi, and we will hear from both of them later on this evening. Now I'd like to move on to our prepared speeches that we have for tonight. The first speech is going to be from Carmen, and I'd like to call up Dan Craig to read the objectives for her speech for tonight.
Carmen is in the Pathways track leadership skills, and tonight she's giving speech 1 in level 2. Do you have the title of your topic with your intro, or did you get that?
Just it's leadership skills.
Okay. Just leadership skills is her title. I'm going to read the purpose of the project, and then I'll turn it back to the Toastmasters to give Carmen an introduction. The purpose of this project is for the member to identify his or her primary leadership style or styles. The purpose of this speech is for the member to share some aspect of his or her primary leadership style or discuss leadership styles in general. And I'll give my evaluation following her speech. Right now, let's have our Toastmaster Aaron give the introduction for Carmen.
Thank you, Dan. Tonight's speaker is Carmen, who has a bachelor's degree in biology and is a clinical lab scientist with a specialty in molecular genetics. She moved out from California to Fairfield 2.5 years ago. She has a son and is currently working at HRI Labs, which is a nonprofit organization committed to the testing and research of water, soil, and food in order to maintain a balanced and healthy environment accessible to everyone. Please join me in welcoming Carmen Antecon.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, honorable guests, and viewers at home. I always thought that being a leader is gonna be something that I plan for a long period of time. But of course, life always gives us a lot of surprises. In this case, I remember a meeting that I was having when I was about 1.5 years. And this meeting was about an accreditation in my job. So the auditor over there told to my boss that he's having too many titles. He was the president, he was the CEO, the lead scientist, the senior scientist, and the quality manager. So the auditor said, just get rid of one of your titles and designate a person to be the quality manager. So after a few seconds of thinking, he said, Carmen. Immediately, like this, I said, oh my God, I already have a lot of work. And being a quality manager is gonna be such a huge, huge responsibility to me. So what I said is, okay, thank you so much for nominating to this position, but I have a lot of work. So please designate another person. The next day, the auditor asked the same question to my boss. And my boss, without even looking at me, he said, Carmen is the quality manager. Okay. At that time, I said, if he thinks that I'm going to be the quality manager and he believes that I'm going to be able to do it, okay, Carmen, you have to step up. Come on, and be the quality manager. Because they are not going to try to interfere in whatever you are doing. If you are having too much work, you have to understand. So I became the quality manager that day. And that gave me the responsibility to have a lot of work, but at the same time to have qualities. And there are 3 qualities that I need to mention. The first quality is that you have to lead by example. Second, you have to be an effective communicator. And third, you need to be very, very optimistic. Leading by example, for me, was, for example, right now I'm working in the accreditation, ISO accreditation 17025-2017, which is the one that is requiring a lot of modification to the 2005, which we are working now. For me, leading by example means that I have to be competent for my team in order to then be able to resolve the problems that we are going to overcome. Another one, and the second one, is be an effective communicator. And all of us know that it's really important for us. Why? Because in the workplace is the key to have a good environment. If you don't talk or you don't express your opinion, your quality of work is gonna be diminished. So what I do, I just, every Friday we are having meetings, weekly meetings with the CEO. And we just expose our concerns, our questions, whatever we have in mind. There is 1 hour that we are gonna have all of this meeting just for the management to hear us and to bring solutions. The third one is you have to be very, very positive, because there are going to be days that it's not going to be sunshine. It's going to be kind of dark. But at the same time, when you are positive, everything becomes easier to manage. The environment is really relaxed. And your team know that when they are relaxed, they are going to put a lot of the best that they can. So they are gonna become more they are gonna work more, and at the same time they are gonna feel very, very good. So this type of leadership is called democratic. And it's called democratic because I was doing the quiz in the pathways. And in the pathways they said that it's democratic. So it's because I like that all the people bring a consensus and ideas so they can reach a common goal. as I said, being a leader is not something that it has to be really like a big responsibility. It's more that you have to contribute. In my case, it's not being a quality manager. It is just, it's not a title. It's something that you have to encourage your team, your co-workers, your family to be the best they can and success in life.
Madam Timer, would you please give us 2 minutes to evaluate our speaker? Now, our next speaker is Adi, and I will actually be reading the introduction, objectives for Adi's speech. Sorry. Adi will be doing his icebreaker for tonight. The purpose of this speech, his first speech, is for the member to basically introduce himself to the club, learn the basic structure of a speech. It's basically their first, more or less, they're supposed to be their first time, or we're supposed to assume it's their first time giving a speech. It's a nice, easy speech of just telling us about who they are, a certain aspect about themselves. Leave it open to interpretation, really. And Adi has written me a brief bio about himself. Adi is a tech person. He will tell us more about himself in his icebreaker speech. Please join me in welcoming Adi.
Good evening, Toastmasters, honorable guests, and viewer at home. Today, I'm going to introduce myself to the club, the new club that I belong to. And the title of my speech is My Story in the Making. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. This is the statement, or the thing that I always remember. My name is Adi Hazim. I'm from Jordan. I was born in Amman, which is the capital of Jordan, and I belong to a loving family. I have 3 sisters and 3 brothers. I believe that true knowledge is the most powerful weapon in life. That's why I hold master's degree from DePaul University, and I'm always a student. And my bachelor is in computer science. Going back to my childhood, I was lucky to be very well looked after, but far from being a conventional child. I always liked to play with electronics. When I was a child, just playing with electronics. Other children, and they were playing with the passive dull toys, but my passion was into electronics and every object that runs through electrical pulses. That was weird, because you don't have too much friends. So my friends were like stereos, cams, TVs, anything, any object that runs with electrical pulses. In the weekend, like my weekends, the main activity is basically to wire up the whole house by the stereos. So I used to bring all the speakers, put them and to distribute them, try to make the chords to be tidy and organized. But actually, because I didn't have support from my family, and like my whole weekend working on distributing everything, the electronics, demolished in few seconds by my parents. Mm-hmm. So they hate to see wires hang on the walls. My family always wanted me to be an electrical engineer, because my uncle is an electrical engineer and he's very successful. But my dream was in software engineering, because I believe it's only with laptop and an internet connection you can do magic, and you can be a programmer, and in any point on earth. And that's why here I am, the tech person. I'm very determined to one day to open my own business. However, because I moved recently to Jordan, to the US, I joined Toastmasters in Jordan because I want to improve my public speaking. And I also joined something called JCI, Junior Chamber International. It's all about leadership. And I used to really work hard during my day job and go and be a volunteer with Toastmasters and JCI. Because I know when it comes the power of giving, this is why I truly know, but the best thing in life is to give. I'm trying to give, I don't know. To open my multi-international company, because I have big dreams, I always dreamed to come here to the US. And I knew about MUM, Maharishi, the program, so from a friend, so I came to the US full of passion, want to basically create one day my company, because I believe that the world needs creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship. However, all of these things can't be done without hard working. So Thomas Edison, who once said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And once again, the ones who change the world are the ones who think different. Thank you.
Madam Timer, please give us 2 minutes to evaluate our speaker. Madam Timer, which speakers qualified?
Both of our speakers qualified tonight.
All right, thank you. And now we would like to start our evaluation. What's that? Oh, vote. Yes.
They came in within the time.
Okay.
Let's vote for who we thought
Best
the
speaker.
best speaker was. Any other votes? Going once, going twice. All right, let's move on to the evaluation section. Our first evaluator for tonight. No? What?
Call it the general evaluator.
Oh, sorry.
You're a little out of practice, that's all right.
Yeah, let me call up the general evaluator, Jean Symington.
Notice that. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Such a pleasure to have our speakers here tonight. And now we get to hear from our evaluators, which is always personal opinion, what they felt the speaker did well, how they met the objectives for the speech, and then also some suggestions for if they were not quite meeting the objectives for the speech, what could they do, what could they add that would help them to make those objectives work. Our first evaluator for Carmen Anticona is Dan Craig. Please help me warmly welcome Dan Craig.
Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. I think we all enjoyed Carmen's presentation tonight. She obviously worked on it carefully, and she was telling us about her own business experience. I thought the thing that really was the best thing that Carmen did for us tonight was to tell us stories. When she's telling us a story about her own work experience, then we really understand what her experience is. It's her best way to illustrate points for us. It gets us on an intellectual and an emotional level, so we buy into it. I've got an evaluation form that asks me about clarity, vocal variety, eye contact, gestures, audience awareness. I'm going to go through those quickly. and then for some general comments. Vocal variety, I thought, was something Carmen excelled in. Particularly, I heard at a couple of points where she spoke quietly. It was a good contrast. I believe when she was talking about her 3 points, the third point was optimism. She spoke more quietly when she spoke about that point. Mm-hmm. It was a good contrast. And then back to full volume. That's always very effective. Clarity, I said that she's accomplished. English as a second language produces some challenge, but I noticed good enunciation, which helps a lot. And so I thought that went well also. Eye contact, generally good, though I did notice at a couple of points, a couple of passages, sort of an inward gaze. And I'm sure that that's the brain going, what was the next point? The more you could avoid that, the better. One thing that I said in my general comments is to say that something you might want to work on is the idea of presenting one point to one person. It's really very effective if you speak out a point to a person and complete that thought. Go to another person, speak out a point and complete that thought. By the end of the speech, everybody feels like you've given the speech to them because you have that direct contact with them. Audience awareness, excellent. Comfort level, very much so. We interested the audience, and I thought the topic was quite good also. I enjoyed that you brought out 3 points of leadership: leading by example, effective communication. Of course, I'd stumble on that, and optimism. And then the last point that I'm going to note from the evaluation form is, what's something that you could do to challenge yourself? I praised your vocal variety before, but I think to challenge yourself, you could go even to some greater extremes. Practice in one of your future speeches, getting really loud at some point, and then really soft, and speeding up and slowing down. Those would be good techniques. Thank you. Madam General Evaluator.
Okay, hang on, let me just
Slash
write down your
timer.
time here.
There's no hanging on the Toastmaster.
Evaluating. This will be fun. Thank you, Dan Craig. Our next evaluator, evaluating our second speaker, Adi Hazim, is Aaron Russell. Please help me warmly welcome Aaron.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. After a month or so being with us, Adi has given us his icebreaker speech. It's truly an excellent icebreaker speech, a great way of starting off his Toastmasters career with us, and definitely a sign of great things to come from him in the future. I thought Adi had an excellent intro and conclusion that sort of tied all of his body of his speech together. He had a nice little quote at the beginning: "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Nice little anecdote that, I heard Jean chuckle at, kind of broke the ice a little bit, kind of started us off on the right foot. It's always a great way of doing something like that, like a quote or a little tidbit of nugget of knowledge. I like the examples that Adi used when he described how techy he was. I mean, we know that he has a background in, technology like that, but it was funny hearing him, I'm picturing Adi as a little boy, or trying to, wire different stuff together and playing around and wiring all his stereo systems together and all the different stuff that he talked to us about. And it really painted a picture of Adi that I think really tells us a lot more about what he is. And these are the kind of things that we want out of an icebreaker, little anecdotes that teach us more about who Adi is outside of Toastmasters. And you could tell that he was very interested in what he was talking about. He had great vocal variety. He had a smile on his face the whole time, great hand gestures that emphasized key points within his speech. And he also used his vocal variety, I found, to sort of transition between different parts of the speech. So at the end of his intro, he kind of stopped for even just a couple seconds, and it was like, oh, now we're moving on to the next part of the speech. It was great use of vocal tone or pacing to lead the audience to know to where the speech is going next. So great job there. A couple things that I felt that Adi could improve on. He was very grounded at the podium. I think maybe, as much as we were still keyed into different parts of the speech based on voice, it would have really sealed the deal if he had maybe done a quick movement to a different part of the stage just to emphasize even more, okay, this is the next part of the speech, and just to give the speech some more life. And also eye contact. Now, similarly, Adi had notes, which he used sparingly, I might add. Something I would challenge Adi to do in the future is to get away from the notes completely, but he did use them minimally. But I did find that between that, there wasn't that eye contact there. Something similar that Dan commented on, just kind of singling out each member of the audience. But his use of hand gestures and his vocal variety and that kind of stuff sort of allowed us to gloss over the lack of eye contact quite a bit. And overall, a very nice icebreaker and a sign of things to come. Thank you, Adi.
Wait, you abandoned the.
Oh, is it me?
No, you gotta stay up there till I get up there.
Sorry. I jumped the gun.
You abandoned the ship? Okay. And I'm doing 3 things at once, I love it.
The ship always
We're all
needs
wearing
somebody
many
to
hats
lead 'em.
tonight.
Yes, very good. You're so professional. Good, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Really good. Do our speakers feel like they've gotten some good ideas from all of this? That's the whole point. So they're raring to go on the next one. Let's see. I think at this point we'll call up we're going to switch gears. We're going to do some impromptu work, our table topics muscles, and to help us do that is our table topics master for the evening, Dan Craig.
Do 2 minute speeches.
Table topics, as we know, are impromptu speeches. Everybody is welcome to give it a try, including our honored guest. Table topics is a talk that lasts from 1 to 2 minutes. I have some quotes that I've gotten from famous people. The theme of our meeting tonight was personal success. And I've gotten some quotes from famous people on the subject of success. Some of them are witty, some of them are wise. What I'm going to ask you is what your reaction to that quote is. If you agree with it, and why or why not, if it resonates with your own experience. This is the point where we volunteer. Janet, come on down. I have 5, if you want to pick a number.
3.
The famous person that said this is Herman Melville.
No.
Okay.
It is better to fail in originality than to succeed in imitation. It is better to fail in originality than to succeed in imitation. Give me a reaction to that.
Fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, and honored guest. The quote, it's better to fail at
creative, freedom type
Yeah.
subjects than it is to just do the easy route. That's sort of the way I'm interpreting it. Meaning it's easy to just fit in, get under the wire, play the game, hope to come out unscathed. But it's far more powerful to take a chance, to delve into some creative situation and see where you can take it. So what if you fail? At least you tried. At least you gave it the old college 1-2. That's what I fully believe. As scary as it might be for many of us, better to take that risk than to just schlep through with the old familiar, something you know you could get away with type of thing. Great quote. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Janet. Now I know everybody's eager out there
Wait,
now.
no, you gotta raise your hand. He has to call on you.
I have a feeling Dee's gonna raise his hand. I have this feeling.
He gets to call on you.
Because what if
Is
we all
anybody?
do?
So where's your hand?
No.
Just being opposition.
All right.
I have 5 quotes, we've already used 3. Number 3 is gone. 4. Our famous person is Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, Rough Rider.
It's hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed. He said, it's hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed. Please give us your thoughts about that.
Well, Teddy Roosevelt was one of my heroes. I grew up studying history. And the thing about doing something is that you have to give it your 100%. You have to think about whatever the next step is. And I think when you're attempting to do something that's maybe original or that's a little difficult, it's really good to have a game plan, because you can see how you're progressing going forward. And you get to modify perhaps steps that you take that were not effective and go back. I think about my own self. I've had many careers being associated with this movement here. And the thing about my own personal life, taking it personally, is I've had a number of different roles I had to play in terms of work, making money, living here. I can't believe I've probably had 10 careers since I joined this movement. So the point of all this is that when you're in a situation where you're challenged a bit, I can remember talking to farmers. Do I look like a farmer? I remember a farmer telling me once, "What are you doing out here, boy? You ain't no farmer." And I looked up at it and I said, "Well, you just write a check out real quick, Mr. So-and-so, and I'll be out here lickety-split." I work for Jim Schaefer in Soil Technologies. So in that situation, you learn to think on your feet and be original. And to kind of summarize this is in the sense that if you challenge yourself, put yourself out there, it's a little unnerving, but you grow in that.
We've got time for 1, maybe 2 more. Lacey, you want to try?
Yeah.
It's optional, but.
I'll try. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do this in
Good
the
job.
right, proper manner.
Could we just remind her, so just keep an eye,
At the green.
go for the green, then you're in the zone, and when it's red, if it gets to red, wrap it up.
Sure.
The green's at 1 minute, the yellow's a minute and a half, the red's at 2.
2.
And then you have 30 seconds.
Okay.
So it goes pretty quick.
All right.
Yeah, it goes faster than you think.
You
I
can
have
take 30
1,
seconds.
2, and 5.
All right, give me number 5.
Number 5.
Yes.
Our famous person was Robert Kennedy. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly.
Okay, thank you.
Also,
You can take 30 seconds.
Yeah,
on that.
thank you.
What's that?
You can take 30 seconds to kind of compose yourself.
I think I've got this one. Robert Kennedy is someone who is very important in our history. And I want you to ask yourselves, like, have we all failed? We've all failed at something. And through those failures, we have learned. We have learned a lot of things. Usually, if we're mature and we're wise, we learn from our failures that, hey, maybe we should do this again. Let's not repeat the same thing that's created the failure. However, through failures, we can also have success, just as John Kennedy has said. Because of all those trials and failures, we've come to a conclusion like either this is something that is worth achieving or something that is not worth achieving. Oftentimes, I have found myself repeating the same mistakes over and over again. But eventually, I have come to the conclusion, you know what, it was worth it. It was worth it to me because the outcome has made me successful.
Yeah,
I think we could squeeze in one more, or actually we're technically out of time. Anybody feel inspired? I know you're all inspired, but I think we'll go ahead and call Veda up to do the evaluations. Just one more note to himself.
Sorry, with the camera. Thank you, Dan. That moment I was thinking, am I going to do a topic myself? And I've gotten pushed into right away doing this. So hold on a moment for me to organize my notes. Just to review, we had 3 topics, which was Janet.
No, we didn't vote. We didn't vote.
So I will call for that vote. We should vote for best
Everyone's qualified.
topic. And please review the names of the people.
It was Janet, Dee, and Lacey.
they all qualify.
Who's counting the testament?
I can do it again.
You know you won't cheat. You're not in it.
Madam General Evaluator, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, and viewers at home. We just had 3 people who gave the table topics, and they all did an excellent job. And a lot of that credit is actually due to Dan, who, who provided excellent topics. And it was very clear what the intention of the topics were. And it carried the energy into the speeches that were given tonight. First we had Janet. Janet was to speak about originality versus succeeding. She took about 5 or 10 seconds to think it over. And then she rephrased the question. I thought this was an excellent strategy, because if you rephrase the question in something slightly simpler, you can go at it from a different angle. So she rephrased the question, and then she rephrased the question, and then she was done with the speech. So some content would be helpful. But that first step of rephrasing the question is a lesson for us all. It takes up time, and you succeeded in qualifying. But seriously, you have a nice, smooth manner. You put us at ease, and we always like to hear from you. So thank you, Janet. The next speech was D. He took, as usual, absolutely no time to think. But he is so excited about his topic, and he was so excited about Teddy Roosevelt. He had the historical background on Teddy Roosevelt, what he was called, and we just were drawn in by that. So that in itself is something that a speaker would love to do for everybody, be drawn in. He used the word movement, which I'm assuming is a transcendental meditation movement, and it's the organization which he worked for. He said it twice. That was jargon, so I would suggest that he does not use jargon or explains his volunteer positions maybe with the university. I thought it was funny about talking about the farmers and Jim Schaefer. That was a great thing. And finally, Lacey, she spoke about Robert Kennedy. She was very passionate. She got right into it. She used great gestures. And my suggestion to her is just to, great first job, practice a little bit to reduce your nervousness. So that's back to the general evaluator.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Evaluator. Yes. All right. Now we would like to hear from our timer as to which evaluators qualified. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. All of our table topics qualified. So that would be Dan, Aaron.
I didn't.
Wait, I not table topics, wait a minute. The
Speakers.
Evaluators. That's what I meant. Thank you. Yes, evaluators. We're on to, I tell you, it's like I've got 3 hats over there. So our evaluators, we had Dan, we had Aaron, and we had Veda. And they all qualified.
You don't have any skin in the game.
Oh, hands down, Danny.
Well, no, wait. Janet.
That's why you're.
That was
Janet, now you are being outre.
That was okay.
You are very outre, okay? So the non-outre approach to ballot counting is you count them in secret and then you discreetly pass the winner to the Toastmaster.
See, it's my first time.
Yeah. And if there's a tie, you just kind of decide, you do a little, drawing in yourself there, okay?
Right.
Okay.
Drum roll and everything.
Right.
Forgot.
Okay, but did you catch all those outres? Because I was really.
Okay, let me write those down.
Okay,
2
I had like, what,
points
about
for
3?
Jean. Okay, we're going right now.
Okay,
was too
good,
busy
all right, yes, no,
That's fine.
yes, no, maybe. Okay,
Points for Janet if she demonstrated the word of the evening.
she did. Not only gave us the word, but demonstrated the behavior. That is awesome. Hands for Janet. All right, there we go. Okay. Now we're at our reports. We'd like to hear from our timer. That would be me. I will go ahead and do the timer's report. For our speeches, Carmen was 6 minutes, 38 seconds. Adi was 4 minutes, 58 seconds. Table topics, Janet was 1 minute, 9 seconds. Dee was 1 minute, 45 seconds. Lacey was 1 minute, 8 seconds. Speech evaluators, Dan, 3 minutes and 28 seconds.
Ooh.
Aaron, also 3 minutes and 28 seconds.
Oh,
And
wow.
Veda, 3 minutes and 25 seconds.
Wow.
Dancing on the edge there. Okay, and that is my report as the timer. But also, thank you. Next, I'd like to hear from our grammarian, who will give us both word usage and then also any creative usages of language that you noted, or any usages that we maybe need to address for improvement. Thank you.
With Carmen, I liked her wording of democratic leadership. And she used it a couple of times and explained it. It's very good. I didn't hear any problem language with her. And Adi had a lot of good phrases like knowledge is key. With a laptop, you can do magic anywhere in the world. And that one quote, I didn't get who it was from. 1% is inspiration and 99% is perspiration. Success, was that what that was?
Thomas Edison.
Thomas Edison. Huh. And those who change the world are those who think differently, or are outre.
Thank you.
You know, you would give us like speaking
And
of
count.
outre.
I used it once.
Okay.
Jean used it 3 times, and we missed a lot of wonderful opportunities to use the word. Next time.
Okay. And Lacey, just as a heads up, the grammarian and the counter, it's really a listening exercise too, because Janet has to listen carefully for things. And then our next report giver, who is our counter, Art Atkinson, listening for filler words. And once you have that role, you hear filler words all the time. It changes your life.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and hear from our counter, Art.
Tonight, Aaron used or 4 times, twice, twice, and 4 times. Dan was clean. Carmen, 1 2 1 2 so's, and Carmen, you use so to string sentences together. Yeah. Aaron, on the other hand, rather Adi, you use and to string sentences together. She uses so.
So and.
You'll use and once that way, and you had 1 false start. Adi, you used 3 times, so once, 4 ands, 1 zeros. Jean was clean. Jenna was clean. D used once, once, 1 so, 4 ands. Lacey, 2 4 ands. Veda was clean. That's my report.
Okay, well, thank you for our counter report there, Art. And now we have a joke from our joke master, Adi Azim.
Thank you. Good evening again, Toastmasters, honorable guests and viewers. And I'm going to have like 2 jokes. What did the traffic light say to the car?
Stop.
Don't look, I'm about to change. All right. And my boss told me to have a good day, so I went home. Today at the bank, an old lady asked the banker to check the balance, so he pushed her over.
All right, very good. As the general evaluator, I am now going to evaluate evaluators, because we evaluate everything that moves, Lacey. Really.
Okay.
That's the goal here. Dan evaluated Carmen. Dan had a lot of positives that he starts out, makes the speaker feel very good, and he gave specifics. So he mentioned the stories that she relayed to us, and he gave vocal variety comments. He also gave a suggestion, eye contact comment, that how to direct your eyes and really hone in on someone and then move to someone else. So that was all good. I'm gonna come back to Dan. I had a suggestion, I think I got sidetracked timing. Aaron evaluated Adi. He talked about opening, gave a lot of good positive feedback. And he gave specifics. He mentioned the opening, but he also mentioned the quote. He gave Adi a suggestion too. Said something about movement. Well, we have a tape. Dan and I, we think it's on a VHS. We have to dig into the old archives, but it's Craig Valentine on staging and how you do that. It's really, really good. So we're gonna try to pull that up, because we have that a lot. We talk about use the stage, and we're not all clear on what that all means. Doesn't mean wandering around aimlessly, but anyway, the suggestion for, and he also mentioned using the notes, and it kind of made you a little less connected with the audience, which you probably felt too. But for an icebreaker, it's okay. Suggestion to Aaron, he talked about good gestures, but I'd like to see an example, like what was a good gesture that happened that he could specifically relate to us. Same thing with the vocal variety. He liked the vocal variety, I believe. So give us an example of what that was, so we understand. Veda did our table topics evaluation. He gave positives and even a little humor. Janet rephrasing the question, making it simple, but then running out of time to actually put in content. That was kind of funny. Did you feel okay with that comment?
No.
No, it felt a little.
No, because for me that was content, trying to explain what I was saying, so.
Yeah, okay. So, sometimes, so that particular evaluation point doesn't really resonate for you, so that's what we do. If it doesn't really resonate for you, it's okay, you just let it go. There was a suggestion, for what it was worth, to make sure you have time to give content. So that was, his evaluation, and I thought it was okay. He evaluated D. He gave a suggestion as well, not to use jargon, and D understood that. Right, D, you understood that as well? You don't use jargon, okay. So he gave positive strokes, and he gave also a suggestion. And then Lacey, I'm supposed to be timing this, I can't do it. Someone should have been timing. Okay, well, now I get all the time I want, all right. Lacey, he said, gave positive, passionate, but he also said, just, it's first time up, muscle will get stronger with practice. And so that was very good. My suggestion to Veda was a little bit slow out of the gate, getting started. When you only have 2 to 3 minutes, you want to spend as much time as possible evaluating the people. I even started over the timing because he was getting organized, but still, just want to make sure you get going so that you give as much value to your speakers as possible. And that is my report. Down. I'm just going to make this comment that I feel I would want us to help each other with uptalk. I want us to not do uptalk. So that's what, does everyone know what that is, uptalk?
You lift your voice up.
It's when you go up at the end of your sentences.
For your question?
Instead of going, it's like a question, but there is no question.
Right.
And it really makes you sound weak and indecisive, and like you're looking for approval for everything you say. It's quite a topic out there. So let's just land our sentences, and they go down, and then when you ask a question, it goes up. Okay. And I'm an offender. I am listening to myself going up, and it drives me nuts. So, that's what I was doing this with Dan, we're doing this. Okay. You notice that, that the agenda went over on the second page. I didn't have time to change it, I guess I got a little carried away on our quotes up here.
It's a stacked agenda.
We had a good meeting there. With that, I go ahead and invite up our Toastmaster. I know we're just about out of time. Give our awards and then close us out with our president.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator / Timer. Tonight, I'd like to give the awards, which I don't have in front of me. Oh, yes, I do. Never mind. Our first award for Best Speaker goes to Carmen.
All right.
Our next award for Best Table Topics, Lacey.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Smile for the camera.
I appreciate it.
And I don't even need to ask Janet. Our best evaluator for tonight is Dan.
What a complete surprise.
And now I'd like to pass it over to our president.
Just a couple of quick things. We're pretty much past time. This is the last meeting in the month before we have to have all our dues turned into Toastmasters. So if anybody hasn't paid their $54 for the coming 6 months, see our treasurer, Carmen.
Yes.
Do it now.
Do it now.
And so it's $54 over 6 months?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What else? Jean is our Vice President of Education. She schedules the speeches. If anybody wants to do a speech next week, it's completely open. So please talk to Jean about that slot or one of the coming weeks. And yes.
Or enter your speech into Easy Speak the way we talked about it last week. Go ahead and enter it. You can talk to me, it's okay, but if you can get extra points if you enter it yourself into Easy Speak. And there's a place on the left, Carmen told us
Okay.
where to go.
Next Tuesday is October 1st. First Tuesday in the month is time for our officers meeting. We'll have that downstairs at 6:50. And I think one of the things we'll talk about is the art walk. We're planning to have our art walk booth again. We've done it a couple of times. It's been really good exposure. We don't really have time to organize right now, but I think I'll suggest to Aaron you see if you can gather your volunteers by email. Let's try that.
Yeah, I could do that.
And then we kind of finalize the details when we have our officers meeting. Is there anything else? Oh, Lacey, why don't you stand and tell us one thing you liked about the meeting?
Okay. First of all, I just want to say thank you because that was totally unexpected. Public speaking has always been a very hardship of mine. So I enjoyed getting to know each one of you very briefly, and I also enjoyed listening to your personalities resonating through your speeches. I liked that a lot. It was a very warm welcome, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome to come visit again anytime. If you want to think about joining us, talk to our VP of Membership, Aaron. Anything else? All right, Aaron.
The membership feedback forms. I think I wasn't here last week, but the week before, I think I emailed them out. So far, the only one I've gotten back is Carmen's. I mean, this is the way for you guys to be able to provide feedback on our meetings and our club in general. And I guess I would appreciate people printing them out, or if you want me to bring some to the next meeting, I can do that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Is it okay to fill it and send it by email?
Sure, whatever works.
And why don't you just forward your email the last time you reminded us?
Yeah,
It had the form attached, I think.
Sure, I can do that. Yes, it did.
Okay, very good. All right, that was a fun meeting tonight. Let's all help clean up everything. And see you next week.